Hey everybody, it's Rachel from Rachel is Knitting, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to use the Ravelry stash feature when logging your yarn in a Ravelry project. Before we get started, I do want to forewarn you that this video does show screen recordings of the Ravelry platform, so if Ravelry causes harm to you, please click out of this video and I'll see you next time. Alright, here we are on the Ravelry homepage. In an earlier video in the Ravelry user guide series, I showed you how to virtually catalog your yarn using the Ravelry stash feature. It's really helpful to have visuals of all of your yarn cataloged in Ravelry, but the functionality extends far beyond that. So today I'll be showing you how to link your virtual Ravelry stash catalog to your Ravelry projects. So I'm going to bring my mouse back to the upper right hand corner and hover over the My Notebook option. From there, I'll select Projects, which will bring me to a view of all of the projects that I've logged on Ravelry. The way that I have it organized has my whips at the top, and I'm going to click on my California sweater whip. Now, as you can see, when this whip is pulled up, there's an info page that includes my notes as well as any other relevant information relating to the project. What you don't see right now is any yarn or needles logged, so let me go ahead and show you how to log yarn, but not only log yarn from your stash. Take your mouse to the upper right hand portion of your project page and click Edit Project. This will bring you to a view of your project page where all of the parameters like who you're making it for, when you want to finish it by, what size you're making, etc. All of those parameters can be populated. Scroll down to the Yarns section. You'll notice here that there are two options. You can click Add Yarn or use Stash Yarn. If you click Add Yarn, you'll see that you need to manually populate the yarn name, the colorway, the dye lot, the weight, how many yards per skein, how many grams, etc. That's a lot of information to manually populate. But if you've already logged your stash within the Ravelry stash feature, a lot of this work will already be done for you. So instead of going with the option to manually add all of these parameters, I'm going to click the trash can at the bottom of the Add Yarn option. Click OK so that it disappears, and now instead I'm going to click Use Stash Yarn. Now what that does is it brings up a pop-up window that shows all of the yarn that you have logged in your Ravelry stash. As you can see, I have quite a bit. That covers the span of 4 pages. Instead of sifting through this manually to find the 2 yarn bases that I'm using, I'm going to utilize this search bar here at the top. I know that the fingering weight base I'm using for this project is called Fairy Thimbles for the colorway name, so I've typed that in and I'll click Enter. This will now only show me the yarn that I've logged in my stash that fits that descriptor, with Fairy Thimbles being associated with that catalog card. I'm using the Boardwalk sock base, so I'll click Use, and that populates my logged yarn with all of the relevant information, the colorway name, the yarn weight, the business I purchased from, how many yards per 100 grams, and you'll see down here there is a field to enter the skeins used. Since I have not yet finished this project, I don't know how much of the 3 skeins I have that I'll be using in this project, so for now I'm going to leave that blank. This isn't the only yarn that I'm using for this project, so to enter the next item, I'll just click Use Stash Yarn again, and again I have this pop-up window with many options to choose from. This time I know that I'm looking for a Chime Surrey base, so I'm going to type that in and click Enter. This brings up the only 2 options in my stash that have the Chime Surrey base name attached to it. I'll find the one-of-a-kind option that I'm using and select the Use button. And again, you see that it populates with the yardage already entered, the grams entered, the yarn weight, what the colorway name is, etc. The only thing that is not populated is how many skeins are used. I'll go ahead and scroll back up to the top of the page and click Save Changes. Now I can see on this project page that the yarn that I'm using is linked directly to my stash. Now, if you want to look at the yarn from a stash view, you can click on the hyperlinked yardage that is listed for your stash. So I'll go ahead and click on the 1,377 yards in stash link under Chime Surrey, and that should bring me directly to that yarn's catalog page in my Ravelry stash. Now, here's something really cool. On the yarn stash card, if I look towards the bottom, I can see that it's linked to one project, the California sweater. So if I click on that, I'm brought back to my project page. So it's really cool, the functionality that you can go back and forth between your stash view and your project view when you're thinking about your projects and the amounts of yarn you may have to allocate to other projects if you're hoping to do that. Now let me show you something really cool. If I go to Edit Project, let's say hypothetically we're at the end of this project. I've finished the project, it was great, and let's just say, again hypothetically, I used 2 3/4 of my 3 total skeins of each of these bases. I don't think that's actually what's going to happen, but just for the sake of demonstration, let's go with that. So I've entered 2 3/4 skeins, or 275 grams for the fingering weight and 138 grams for the lace weight, and I'll click Save Changes, which I can also do by scrolling down and clicking Save Changes. Now it says an updated view of how many yards of each weight I have left in my stash. So again, let's click on the new updated hyperlink. Now it says 115 yards in stash for my Chime Surrey. Clicking on that will bring me back to the Chime Surrey page, and you'll see that the yarn card has been updated with how much I have left. It gets even better. If I go back to my main stash view, which I'll do by hovering my mouse over the My Notebook feature and scrolling down to Stash, I not only can look at all of the yarn I have cataloged, but I can apply filters to this to see what yarn I have available or what yarn is already in use in different projects. So I'm going to take my mouse to the right hand side to the Filter Your Stash area. I'll then click the Select Filters drop-down menu, and I'm going to first select In My Projects for my first filter. Now, the only yarn that I'm being shown is yarn that is in a project, whether a project currently in progress or a project I have completed, aka a finished object. If I scroll down just a little bit, I can see that the Chime Surrey and the Fairy Thimbles Boardwalk Sock are both populated with this filter. So it's really, really cool and helpful to be able to see at a glance what yarn of your cataloged stash is currently in use. The other side of this is if I go back up to that filter option, click on the drop-down menu, and instead of clicking In My Projects, I want to see what's not in my projects. I can then look at a view of the yarn that's currently not in use and therefore most likely available for use. So this is helpful for when you're pattern planning. Maybe you think, oh, this yarn that I have is going to be the perfect fit for this pattern, but you've forgotten you've already been using it for something else. So it's just a really handy way to stay organized and to keep a good handle on where your yarn is being used and how you can possibly use it for future projects. So I really, really am loving the functionality of the Ravelry Stash feature and how you can link it to your projects. I haven't even shown you all of the cool things with using the Ravelry Stash feature, so stay tuned for the next installment of this series when we dive into how using Ravelry to log your yarn stash can benefit you when utilizing the Ravelry Queue feature. So until then, happy knitting, happy Ravelry using, and I'll see you later.